Hello guys, welcome again to another session of our training. This is Bootstrap. This is the first class we're having on Bootstrap, and I'm glad we are doing this now. We are reviewing version 5.3, and that's what we have now as that of recording. In the future you might be seeing another version. So Bootstrap 5 is the latest version of the popular open source front end known as Bootstrap. That's the general name. It was developed by Twitter. Bootstrap has become one of the most widely used framework for building responsive and mobile-first websites, and in fact, to develop web applications, as the case may be. So what mobile-first means is that it will tailor to the mobile community first, meaning if you are using a mobile device to look at this, it will feel and look nice on a mobile phone. It provides a collection of pre-built HTML, CSS, and JavaScript components, as well as flexible grid system. This is the most, interesting part, the grid system. We're going to get that, later, which makes it easy for developers to create versatile, appealing, and functional websites. So the grid system is well designed that it will make it very easy for anybody to be able to make use of. And that was the reason why Bootstrap was created in the first place, to make things very easy. Because if you've been designing, websites from now using the grid system, you will notice you repeat a lot of things. You put things in grid a lot. So why don't you have like a framework that makes it very easy? That's what Bootstrap is all about. It makes it very easy that you just need to focus on writing classes. Once you just put the class name there, everything just works. Without writing any code, you create grid components. You won't write any CSS rule. You just put the class name and grid is out. That's how interesting it is. Their website is well documented. All the documentation, all the training we're going to be doing on the Bootstrap is going to be based on their website. So we're going to be going through most of the features here, and you're going to see how the example works. So this should be your next best friend now. The next website that you should pin bookmark on your page should be getbootstrap.com. It's very important you have that saved right now. Overall, Bootstrap aims to provide developers with a more streamlined and modern framework for building responsive, mobile-friendly websites. It focuses on performance, flexibility, and improved customized options, which makes it a powerful tool for web development projects. Okay, so all this talk, how do we get Bootstrap working? How do we get it onto our project? Because that's the idea. That's most of all this. There are several methods in which you can get Bootstrap into your project. We will be focusing on the old method because you've not learned all these other features. There is this NPM, which is totally advanced as at now for your own level. So we're not going to be using the NPM process. There's also using CDN. It makes it easy for you to just copy the link and then put in your project. So you can use this method. But sometimes you may not have internet access. You want it saved on your system. So we'll just go ahead and use the normal process, which is to download it. So once we download it, it will be available in our download section and we can import it into our project. We're going to go through that process right away. So go to getbootstrap.com, click on the download. It will come to this page. Then the first thing you see here, you download it. So once you click on the download, it should be waiting for us there. So let's bring up our project and see how it goes. I've already created the folder for our new project because now we're doing Bootstrap. I just create a new project called Bootstrap-1, and we have our file which is supposed to be under the download section, and that is supposed to be here. So I have a couple of files, but you will just see what you need to work with. So for starters, let's now start creating proper structure for websites. Most of the time we just dump everything here. So you could start with assets. This is just my own nomenclature for putting all files that I use for my website. So you can have assets, and inside the assets you can have images, meaning all the image that we'll deal with will be inside there. You can have CSS. So there are several files here, but you just need to worry about a few of them. We're focused on CSS. So we'll go to the minifile file. Minifile means it has been shrunk so that when you are downloading it when it's being downloaded over the internet, it's not consuming a lot of space. That's the purpose of the minify there. So we put our file there, and you can see that's the minify. We don't need to worry about what is going on here. So we have that saved. We also need the JavaScript version. We need the JavaScript also, and which is here. We also need the minify version of the JavaScript. We create its own folder as well, JS, and we drag our file inside from here inside the JavaScript folder. So you now have this structure like this. This is how our project looks like. Everything CSS go into CSS file folder. Everything JavaScript go to JavaScript, or rather JS folder. And by the time you start putting images into your project, everything images go into assets/images. So it makes your project kind of neat. Now we need to create our source document, which is our main document, index.html. And from this index.html, we will reference the two files that we have, these two external files. So before I reference them, let's just write our basic HTML page. So we won't look silver. Doing magic, we'll provide our head section, and we have all the things that we normally have in the head section there. Our title, our meta information, then we have our body. Okay, this is normal. So we've not done anything special here. We just we did just normal HTML, Bootstrap demo, and hello world. So let's preview what we have and see the results. So with preview, we have this, which is our normal experience. Notice the fonts. Notice the way the fonts look like. This is our old way the fonts normally look. Normally we have to style the font to make it look good. This is the default way the font normally looks like. So how do we bring in Bootstrap? We have two files to bring in. The first file we want to bring in is the CSS, and we use the link tag to bring in our CSS. We specify href, which is the location, and remember the location where we store it is in assets CSS / then we have our Bootstrap. This is the source. The other thing we need to provide is the rel, which we need to say as style sheets, because it's style sheets that we are bringing in. We mentioned what link can do. It can do a whole lot of things. You can bring in other things into your link apart from just CSS. Mainly you put that CSS, location in. Notice the font. The font changes. This is the official Bootstrap font. By just looking at this, it's looking good already. So this proves that Bootstrap has been installed successfully. But there's one more step we need to do. We need to bring in our script. That's JavaScript. It's used for other things. So by the time we get into the course, the more we'll talk about what the script does. So let's just put the script there so that it will not we'll have it display in case we are demoing something, and we don't have to worry about the reason why it's not showing. So this is the script, and this is how we brought it in. We're going to talk about this script in later class when we're talking about JavaScript. So for now, it's just hanging there to make sure that our view is looking, it's coming up well. Now that Bootstrap is installed, let's talk about Bootstrap layout. Bootstrap layout, like CSS layout, is a way for you to organize your content in such a way that you can make it appealing to the user, and the content can probably be placed in where you desire them to be. So before we enter the Bootstrap, before we enter the layout, you need to understand some concepts, and the concept is called breakpoints, the concept of breakpoints. So let me put that down here and call that breakpoints. Breakpoint is the position where your browser changes from a specific device to another device. What that means is currently the browser will recognize the view, this kind of view, as a mobile view. By the time you start extending it, it will change the view to, it will start recognizing it as a different device, maybe like a tablet. Then as you increase it, it will change the view maybe to a desktop. So that is what they call breakpoints. And you also use CSS media query to target those breakpoints so that you can style your layout independently on the width of the screen. So that's what breakpoint is all about. So Bootstrap make it easy for you to identify any breakpoints that you are in that your content is being displayed on. That is one of the major benefits of using Bootstrap. So without you worrying about writing a special class in a normal CSS, you will just worry about the breakpoint name nomenclature that Bootstrap uses, and then you implement it. By the time we start writing code, it will be easy for you to understand. Let's go ahead and list all the breakpoints available. So we put this in a list form so that we can have it out. We have breakpoints from small, so that's more like a small device like a phone, and it's represented by an infix called SM. That's what Bootstrap uses to represent that. And we can say it is less than 500 or greater than 576 pixels. We all know what this is all about. This is the measurement from the beginning of the screen to the end of the screen, from left to right. That's any device that is less than that is denoted as small. So maybe we should use a table to actually, let's put this in a table so that we can have this shown properly. So we can then say this one's name is small. The infix that is required to use is SN. By the time we start using this in code, you will get what I'm talking about. My border, I can style this to give me what I want, because obviously this table is not looking nice. But hey, we are using Bootstrap. I think Bootstrap has something for this. So I know it has, but I just want to show you. We are not styling anything here. We've not styled anything. We've not put normally if we want to style this table, we'll go ahead and start putting our style and doing our thing. But Bootstrap has something for table because they've thought about kind of everything. So what is that style? And that style is called just table. Just go ahead and write table in your class. I told you one of the very important thing about Bootstrap is that you need to know all the class by heart. Just like you know property of CSS, you also need to know the major classes of what you want to use. So I know this already, and it's called table. Immediately I add table there, look at what happens. It brings a beautiful layout of what we are trying to document, and that is the power of Bootstrap. Because all this definition of table, what it has, the features, the coloring, the underlining, it has already been implemented by Bootstrap. So Bootstrap, this file here is doing a heavy lifting for us, making sure that whatever we are designing is looking neat. So let's go ahead with our explanation of what the breakpoints that are available is. So we'll still get to use more of these classes in the future, but this is just explaining breakpoints. The next breakpoint we have is medium. So the medium has the range of 768 and is denoted by MD. These nomenclature are very important, especially the class infix one. I'm going to be focusing on that so that you see what it is. So let's go ahead. I want to place focus on the class infix. Ordinarily, this is forbidden. You are not supposed to do this. This is what you would have done. You would have styled this in a class, but because we have something for this in Bootstrap already, you could just do your text and say danger. We will explain this later on in the class, but I'm just using this opportunity to also demo the power of Bootstrap. Now we've captured the medium. The medium is they call it MD, and it's more of like a tablet mode. So when you are in that device form, it's like a tablet mode. So if you want to target tablet, you use MD. If you want to target a phone, you use SM. So let's go ahead with the next device that we have. The next device that we have is a desktop. It's a desktop device, and obviously you will know that desktop has different screen. There's this old desktops that you have there, and desktop is LG. Target LG screen. This is supposed to be greater than or equal to, while this one is supposed to be also greater than or equal to. Yes. Then the next one we have is extra large. We have extra large because as your screen resolution increases, so as you can tell, for some devices, the resolution of their screen is higher than other devices. So you need to be able to capture all those differences on screen. So when you are looking at a very wide screen, how do you capture those information? So we have those separations of screens in large, extra large. So anything from 1200 equal or above is categorized as extra large, and the nomenclature you use is NL. That's how Bootstrap will know that you are targeting a screen that is XL. The very last one is that's extra screen. So for something way high, and this is a very highly I think my laptop is in this range. I use M2. The resolution is this big. For some big screen that you have, they have this wide screen. I think most of you guys have seen they use this for like ultra wide screen. So you have this resolution in place, and this is called extra large screen. So notice the measurements that you have there. The dimension is very important. So if you are designing any content, you need to be abreast on how the content needs to look on all these devices. Remember, that's what layout is all about. Displaying content is all about. You need to be able to know how will it fit in a phone, how will it fit on a tablet, how will it fit on a desktop, how will it fit on a large desktop, how will it fit on a very large screen size. So this is core. You need to know these stuffs here: SM, MD, LG, XL, XXL. Please put that in your heart. You need to put that in your heart. So let me just say one or two things about media queries. Since Bootstrap is developed to be mobile first, we use a handful of media queries to create sensible breakpoints, and that's what I've just shown you guys now. For our layout and interface, the breakpoints are mostly based on minimal viewpoint widths and allow us to scale up elements as the viewpoint changes. So these are the breakpoints we'll be using. So media query, if you are writing it in form of CSS, you will be specifying it. All these numbers that you've seen here, all these numbers are the breakpoints that you will use to determine your changes. So you will need to hand code those changes yourself. If you are to do that, you have to write the CSS to target each of the screen. Next up, we have containers. Containers, you will notice we've been using that word containers in designing templates all this while. And the purpose of container is to contain something. You want it to be that, okay, this is the primary, the major element that is holding all these things to place. For example, what you are looking at now, the result you are looking at now, you might say you want to put in a container, and that container is supposed to be the house for everything to sit. Let's start from the top and see what we have. Like if you notice, the body now is the container, but you can't move the body around. You can't really style it. We don't normally, make the body the major thing. You need to have its own container. All this content needs to be in somewhere else apart from the body. The body is an independent element that is serving its function to hold everything together. You need to have another element that will sit to hold every other thing together so that you can structure your site very well. So let the body just stay by itself. it's an entry point for you to know that you started, writing your code. So I need to put every one of this in a container, or I can just to show you the illusion of what's going on, I can just put only this one in a container. As I've said, container is a way to house your content and move them around. That's the purpose of having a container. Containers are fundamental building blocks of Bootstrap that contains path and align your content within a given device or viewpoint. So you can use container, for example, to target a particular device. Say this container, should look like this in a particular device, or it should behave like this in a particular device. And let's go ahead and see how container works. So I will just put this first in a, so me putting this in a div is just like this. I've not done anything different. So the container, how to use container, let me write that down here as another h1 and say container. Container is just a class name. I'll repeat that again. Container is just a class name that you can call it on your beck and call by just writing the word container. So if I come here and say class container, that is it. We are done. So the purpose of container is to put this kind of effect in your device. So look at what happens when you have container like that. Notice what you normally do when you want to put your site in the center. You remember all those way you are going to style to put it margin, and you put padding, to put your content in a container, or to provide width and left to it. Remember the UPS site we did, and make sure that the left hand side was blank and the right hand side was also blank. You need to write some CSS code to make those happen. This one, we didn't need to write any code. We just need to put it in a container, and that is all. It does everything for us. We are focusing on the table. If we put everything in a container, it sits like that. So if you want to put the top part in a container as well, you could do that. Container, and come this way. So this should look like this. Let's do this like this. Yeah, so that the breakpoints will show you that there's the line that goes all the way. So this is how container is being used. It's used to put your content, in the center of the screen, majorly. Containers are the most basic layout, elements in Bootstrap, and are required when using, the default grid system. Containers are used to contain path or sometimes center the content within them. While containers can be nested, most layouts do not require a nested container. You don't really need to nest container, because container by default has its own space on left and right. Now, having said this is not the only form of container that we have. You can see the content is being adjusted as you move. Notice when you get to a very large screen, so this screen should be in form of this extra large or extra large. So once you get to extra large, notice what happened to the width on the left hand side. It becomes so big, but it minimizes the width of your content. It makes your content fixed in such a way that your content cannot grow more than what it is. The width of your content cannot grow more than what it is. But what if you want it to still grow? You don't want it to have this too much space here. How do you handle that? How does Bootstrap handle that? So we introduce you to the other things that container does. That's breakpoints within container. Container has its own breakpoints. How do you address breakpoint container? Is by having your suffix that we are used to, SM, MD, LG, XL, XXL, to add it in front of the container, and you will get the feature you are looking for. So by default, I want this container to be displayed properly for XL. So what do we do? I'm targeting this one now, this 15 to 49. I want to leave this one here, the first one here, as a point of reference. So you see the difference between the two things we are doing. So I come here and I said I want to target XL. Remember, look at XL. The screen of XL is 1200. Immediately I add Excel to it. Notice there's a small gap in between here, and compared to the one that we did not put class infix in, we didn't add any breakpoints here, we just use it container. This one that will have breakpoints, you will see the effect as you increase it. Notice the consistency. Notice the consistency. At LG, it stops increasing. While you come here, which is, this is a mobile device, this is using a tablet. At tablet form, it just still maintain. This one stops at tablet, but at tablet is still consistent. When you get to large, it stop. So let's go to XSL. So once you go to XSL, immediately it still maintain that consistency. So it, as that extra large screen, is going to take all the weight. Once it gets to finish extra large screen, then it continues being what it is. But it's possible that you want it to still maintain that section like that automatically. There's what we call fluid. So you can then add fluid to it. Once you add fluid to it, it maintains the consistency that it has forever. So irrespective of where you are, it maintains that consistency. So that's the 6 things that we have there. So we have SM, MD, LG, XL, XSL, and then finally fluid. So fluid will give you this effect. So when you are designing layout, you will know which one to use. By the time we will be doing a website with Bootstrap, you will see us use all these features as we go. Now what I want to put in here is to use, let's use the SM as well. Let's use the SM so that we can document all of them and you can see the future. So this is SM. SM we keep expanding, but where it comes to play is at the point of small. Let's go to MD. So you can see the difference. MD starts from here, while the normal container is stopping from here. Because it's container, it will maintain that content size, but MD maintained here. Once you finish getting out of MD, it will go back to normal container, so it will stay at container. So meaning we've left medium device, we've left the tablet, so it will now maintain normal behavior like it is. So you need to understand how this works. When we get to further example, you will see the effect. So this is just using container. Let's take another example so that you see. Let's see another example here at the bottom. So let's see another example here. So you can see 100% width until small breakpoint. So let's start from the beginning. So this is 100% width until small breakpoint. So everything is okay. So immediately you leave small breakpoints. That's mobile phone breakpoint. It stays. So this is the end of mobile device. Then this other one, it keep extending until you reach MD, which is tablet. So this one has reached tablet. This one keep extending. So depending on the kind of content you are creating, you might say you want the width of the layout to keep stretching until you max out to a particular content. That's the purpose of the container breakpoint that you're looking at now. Purpose of the container breakpoint. As I've mentioned, you can use fluid as well to say you want it to go all the way. All the way. I'll just call it all the way. 100% wide. All the way. So if I keep going all the way, do you see that? It goes all the way. It doesn't really bother. All the way it's going. That's the opposite of fluid there. These other ones, they contain in where you want it. And you will see sites like that. So let's quickly let's demo a website like that has this feature. So even the Bootstrap website, you will notice that it has this feature. Notice once you go stretch, the contents are being placed inside here, within here to here. They are not getting past it. That's the container. No one is going back. Let me go to Twitter and let's see how Twitter looks like. Let's see how Twitter page looks like. As a login page. Okay, notice Twitter as well. is staying in the middle. Let's do YouTube. YouTube is a very good example. YouTube uses the whole full width, but notice the small edge. They use the whole full width. This is a very good example of using a fluid. So depending on your layout and what you want to achieve will determine how you should use your content. So by the time it's shrinking, notice the differences. We are going to do something like this. Don't worry. We're going to work on something like this, and then you're going to see the effect. So this is what they call responsiveness. You can see that the site is responding to the device that is being used. So that this is where Bootstrap shine. So we're going to do something like this later as one of our projects. As we increase, all these things come to light. And you will also see Facebook. Let's also look at Facebook, because we did that some time ago. So look at Facebook. When you increase it to the highest, it maintains specific width. It's not bothered about the fact that you are stretching it to the extreme end. So if you are using a container, this will be what you'll be focusing on. This is more of like the normal container definition. So they are not focused on the fact that it's very wide. Before we move on, let's even design something like this quickly and see the implementation. Something like this, so that you see the way Facebook is looking like this. Let's use container to do something like this. So I'm going to be putting so many things as reference so that we will not waste too much time here. Okay, just for us to illustrate just this simple concept, we have this place, we can call it top, and we have this side, we can call it bottom, or say footer, and here we say login. While here we can say this one has a background. We'll be teaching you guys this class, but this one is just pretty straightforward. We say the background is light and here is white, so you don't need to say anything here. Within this part, we can say we have a container here, and the container houses our login section. While your footer, notice our footer is also starting the same path. While your footer can also have the same effect, because it's having a color white. I will just leave this container here. I could just display this one. Inside here, I will say footer section. So we have actually done that. We have to introduce one more thing, but I will explain that. It's just to give this a visual effect that you can see. It's a utility class, by the way, but we're going to explain it later. Just wanted to put it out there so that we can make this visible. I don't want to write any CSS class. I just want to write Bootstrap, pure Bootstrap, and then show you the effect. Do you see that we are having something similar, like the login page, whereby the top section is housed in this kind of a container. By the way, Facebook is not using Bootstrap template, so they use another one. That's why the measurement is a little bit different. But this gives you an idea of what can happen, where the top section becomes your login section, which is here, and then your bottom becomes your footer section, which is on the bottom here. So this is just a snippet of what container can do. And if we wanted to, you can see as we expand it, we have this effect. And as you expand this one as well, you have this effect. Again, similarities and all that. But you could, if you want to change the feature, we already know how to do that. If we want to adjust the feature, which is specify if we want it to be MD, how short do you want it, how small do you want it before it will break, or you want it to be fluid. We also talk about fluid. Fluid means it's going to go to the end, because it's going to expand itself to the end. So, and that's not what the case is in this point. We saw this in YouTube. That's what YouTube was able to use to flow all to the page. We're going to design something like that in the future. Now that we are done explaining the container, we can go and talk about the grid system, which is very interesting. The grid system is very interesting. I know you guys had a tough time using the grid on CSS, but this is going to be so easy to do. And by the way, from the page we have here, you have Facebook. You should know that this is like a 1-row 2-column grid. We can turn this to a grid where this will be a row and this will be what? Another row, rather another column. This is a column and this is a column, which happens to be a row. So we can use that to do a demonstration. But before we go ahead and start demoing that, I will just show you what are the things that you need to take into consideration when you're working with a grid. So there is a lot of feature that the grid has to offer. The grid on Bootstrap is mobile first. The next thing we want to do next is the grid system. The grid system is fully mobile first and is based on Flexbox grid, which we didn't talk about in CSS, but it was intentional so that we can cover it here on Bootstrap. Let's go ahead and start looking at how the grid system works in Bootstrap. So let's have an example. Again, you will notice what we've been doing. We've not write any CSS code. And that's the idea. You just focus on writing classes and everything's gonna come out. So let's go ahead. Remember how a grid works. A grid works by defining what? A parent, which is what I've just done now. A parent, it will have a class. This way we normally do it. Grid container, right? And then you now have a grid item. Grid item. This is what we normally do. So I'm going to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3. But this time around, we're going to use the class, the nomenclature used in Bootstrap. That's what we're going to use here. Instead of grid container, you denote it by saying row. That's what it will be called, row. And instead of grid item, you denote by specifying what we call col, which is column. So immediately you do that, notice what you have here. It just put it in a grid for you and it makes your life so easy. For the Facebook page, we are working with a 2-column, template. So which they are not evenly distributed. We are going to look at that later. So you are going to learn how to do that later. So the more you have your column, the more it creates space for them, and automatically it evenly distributes, the details that you have there to fit the width that you have. So if you have 6, you can have 7. You can continue using this method. It's just a very quick way if you want to deal with just a quick 2-column, 3-column. Not something sophisticated. You could actually get away, using something like this. But if you want to do something sophisticated, you have to be specific. So to set the width of a specific column, you have to use another nomenclature here. We'll get that. It's very simple to implement. But another thing you need to notice is that a row has to have 12 columns. 12 columns. Very important. Your row has to have 12 columns. That's the way the grid system works. It's calculated using 12. Not really necessarily like that to have 12 columns, but it's calculated using the number of 12. So you have to put that in mind when you are arranging content in what you are doing. So put 12 in mind. And we'll be using separate kind of color to denote what we are working with. I want to put this in context. So I want to center all the things we are doing. So this is more of like centering everything we have. Here, I have an helper class because I want what we are doing to be visible. Let's just have an helper class, and the helper class is just so that we see what we are doing. So I will say everything that is inside a row, and that is a div. I want the border to be specific. Okay, so that should be more visible. So I said our row has 12 columns. in your calculation of what you should be doing, you should be targeting 12 in whatever calculation you'll be doing. So this is like the standard look. I will have this say standard look. The next one I want to talk about is how to give a single column a specific width. Let's add width to a column. How do you do that? So let's make this stand out. Let's make it page 4. So if you want to add a specific number or a specific width to a column, you have to add a number in front of the column in such a way that once you say, by default, when you put the column there, notice that it takes the whole width. Immediately you add the second column, they share the ratio, into half. When you add the third one, it happens like that continuously. So to specify how much width you want to give to this one you're looking at, you can specify it by putting the number in the prefix, in the suffix of the column. So this is straightforward. You are saying column is 1, so you could actually do it this way. The same thing we've done can be rewritten this way. So here you are being specific that they should be 1, 1, 1, irrespective of the fact that it could be automatic. Because you did not provide that feature that it should be automatic, if you just specify 1, it will take what you told it to do. But let's say you want to make it another number apart from 1. You want to make it 2. You see what it did? It took the entire 2 section here. I put this standard look for example so that we'll see how it's spanning through. So that means you could say, let's do 9. You can actually take 9. And if you're looking at the Facebook design, I think it falls under 7. So if you say 7, it could actually do 7. What that means is that the rest of the login section can take 5. I said it has to be up to 12. You can't do more than 12, else it will break. So this can be our login section or logo, and this part can then be our form. Do you guys see how easy it is? Without writing any CSS, you just need to focus on 2 things. The role happen to be the one that will be the class. Instead of grid container, we just write role. And instead of you having a special class that you're going to be coding this separately, you just have the column, the number of widths you want it to occupy, and then you have the other part, the number of widths you want it to occupy. So let's do another example. Let's go ahead and do another example on the bottom. So we have this example. Again, depending on your templates you are working with. Depending on the template you're working with. If you did not specify, look at what happened if you did not specify. It just took the entire thing. If you specify only 1, the rest will be shared automatically. So I will not put anything here. I will just put 1 and 2. So this one was 1. This one is called auto. So if you did not specify the width you want to give it, the one that you specify will take the one that it is. Then the rest will be shared across. So let's play with more features. Let's say you want this to be 6. You see what happened? So you specify 2 things. You want 6 and 1. The system accrued the balance to the one that you said auto. We didn't need to say auto there. Again, if you want to do something like this, where it will be equally distanced here, then this one I can call it auto. Then this one you have your 6. So there might be a reason why you want this template. Whatever kind of template you want, you could use this to actually do, figure it out. Using this method to figure it out. This is very fluid. You can easily maneuver your way. And the reason why they are contained in here, remember, is because we put them in a container. If you remove the container now, it takes the entire full section. So depending on the container, everything is based on the container where it is contained. And you can have grid in a grid. Very interesting. You can have grid in a grid, and they still maintain the law of having 12. So let's go ahead and have another grid system inside this grid. And remember the process. We're going to write our row. Inside our row, you can have as many, what's it called now, as many columns as you want. So if you start with one column, it has one, it takes the full width. By the time you start having more column, it starts like that. So you are continuing from where you stop. So you can have more columns like that. So it will obey all the laws we've talked about now with this new one. And from here, it makes it very neat to work with. So this one is our 6. So this is your 6 here. Inside the 6, you have all these working out for them. So there are still more complex things we still need to talk about on the grid section, because these are just basic things. So let's go back to using breakpoints. Notice what happened here. As you increase it, nothing happens to the grid system. The grid system just stays fixed. It doesn't changes the position. But let's look at the Facebook as we reduce it. Do you see the magic that happens to the Facebook page? As it gets to this position, this should be a mobile view. When it gets to a mobile view, it changes the way it looks to, work with a mobile template. Let's see what happened to the one we've designed. Nothing happened. It still forces itself to look like a desktop, approach. So we're going to show you how to make it look like, this. Notice that the logo is supposed to be here, while the form is supposed to come down. That's the idea. So how do you do something like that? Let's maintain that look so that by the time we do it, we will see it happen. The logo should be full while this form should come down. How do you tell it that complex things? It looks like a programming stuff. It looks like something I was going to write program for, but it's very straightforward and simple. And that's, instead of you writing something like this without specifying, because here we didn't specify any breakpoints in terms of devices. We just specify the number of columns that we want. You need to introduce the breakpoints. At what point should it start breaking? Should it, stop breaking? At this point, if you put it like this, it will never break when it gets to the small device. So at what point should it, not respect the width again that you've provided here? Because here you are saying at all points it should be 7. At all points, irrespective. So you need to put it at what point should it stop respecting this procedure? At when it gets to SM level, meaning when the device is a small device. That's the point that it should ignore this width, this 5 and 7. It should ignore it when you get to that device. So I will do a demonstration now. When I come here, you can see that it's still respecting it because it's getting bigger. By the time it gets smaller and it gets to SM device, it will stop respecting that and make it full. So this is what you get. So with this, you can then put your form, your logo there up here, and then you can put your form on the bottom. This can also be repeated with MD, for example, mobile device. That's the tablets. So if I do MD here and MD here, of course, by the time I start stretching it, this is the breakpoint for MD. The breakpoint point for SM was closer. So if you do SM, for example, notice that SM didn't break until it gets closer, then it will start breaking. This is at the point it breaks. So you can test Facebook to see at what point did Facebook also break. So Facebook also, in fact, Facebook broke at this point. So let's see at the point it was supposed to break. So you can also change this to MD. So that's when you want it to break. So they use a different numbers. So and that's fine. You can always change the weight and what have you of that. So this is when you wanted it. This is where it started breaking. And in a letter as an assignment, you guys can go ahead and do a proper design, because we already showed you guys how to do things like this. So you should be able to style all these things yourself. but we are going to do this in the next class. When we are talking about components, we're going to do this page as well, so that you will see how all these buttons and everything are done. And we are still talking about layout. We still have other things to capture in layout, and we'll be demoing this in the next class. This is just a intro. We'll be coming up with more things on the grid. I want you to go and first understand what I've done so far, and don't want to load all the whole grid system. So this is an introduction to the layout section. Thank you for staying to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on bell notification in order to be notified when we release new videos. See you in the next one.